Speaking of sticking to it, one thing that sticks it to gamers is implying that you should charge more for games because gamers are not that thrilled with how expensive stuff is currently. So Capcom's president came out and said that he thinks games should cost more. And he actually, so this is one of those things where I don't think he's being deceptive or anything, but there's pieces of information that add context to this conversation that probably change the conclusion. So for example, he said, personally, I feel that game prices are too low. Development costs are around 100 times higher than they were in the days of the Famicom or NES, but the price of software hasn't risen so much. There is also a need to raise wages in order to attract talented people. Given that wages are rising across the industry as a whole, I think the option of raising unit prices is a healthy form of business, which, again, at its core, doesn't sound that outrageous. What he doesn't mention is that the number of units sold nowadays compared to the NES is vastly larger. I mean, not even close. Digital sales also mean that there's no physical distribution, manufacturing, or anything to account for. So that's extra profit as well. There's also deals you can go onto like Game Pass, as we talked about last week, where Game Pass will pay you $200 million for launching it day one on Xbox. Game Pass. It wasn't clear if that was also exclusive, so you couldn't release it on PlayStation as well. But at least for like cross-platform stuff, there's a conversation to be had there. There's options. And then there's, DLC expansions, which weren't really a thing in the age of the NES because you couldn't download stuff. So downloadable content was not really a thing. So there's just a lot of other pieces to this. Now, one thing I do want to point out, just because we have to, this is a common thing that is just not thought of. If we bring up an inflation calculator just to put in perspective, gotta do it. I have to do it. If we say $70 in 2023, let's do, I think August is the last month they have. And then we go back to January of 2019. How much do you think $70 was worth? It was equivalent to just under $60. So the jump from 60 to 70 was not actually them rising or raising prices. If you're talking about the value of your dollar, games are actually technically cheaper now versus January of 2019. When you look at value of the dollar, purchasing power. It sucks that money is just magically worth less now, but that's just how inflation works.
But we all got paid more too, right? So it's all evening out.
Yeah, all of our wages increased drastically, didn't they? Yeah. So that whole jump from 60 to 70, I know we all saw it initially as like, oh, they're taking their chance to raise prices and everything. Technically, it was just them adjusting prices to be the same as they were before COVID.
And they're already behind now. That's the crazy part.
Yeah. And I mean, inflation this past month was at like 3.543 or something percent in the US. That's insane. Like it's just your value of your dollar is just steadily crumbling. So I can see what he's saying by wanting to raise prices.
I can see it as well. And it's also like a lot of things in other like businesses. Like, for example, I go to a festival every year where it's like 4 days and a lot of cool bands come, and every year the price increases by $50, and that's like wild. And then the price for a beer also increases from $3 to $4, and that's kind of normal now. And then if I look at games, it's like, okay, they are not that egregious with like their price increases. But the problem, of course, is that weirdly enough, they can do it for the, I mean, music tickets as well are crazy right now. But there is, of course, a limited spot for that. So maybe people are more willing to buy. You just have to find 1,000 people or like maybe 10,000 people that are crazy enough. While with games, it's obviously different. So I totally get it. And we want the best types of games. We want them to invest $200 million so we can have better graphics and the best cutscenes and the most impressive world to explore. So I get it. But on the other hand, it's like, I don't think it's realistic, sadly. So you also have to just look at the what is realistic to ask for a game. And in terms of entertainment, gaming is still the way more expensive than, I mean, music. You just subscribe to Spotify. Streaming, you have maybe Netflix and HBO or whatever, and you're good as well. And if you want to keep up with all the games, you have to pay way more.
Yeah.
So it's already a way more expensive hobby. It's a difficult situation, I think, but we've also seen still a lot of games do very well. So it is possible, even though the prices have remained the same, because way more people are playing.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing, luckily.
Yeah. It does reflect, again, kind of like the first story we touched on, where people like publishers and the people on the business side of the industry are feeling very frustrated with the lack of price increases. But gamers, if anything, gamers feel like games are too expensive nowadays, because they buy a $70 game and then they still have to deal with live service crap in there. They have to deal with like $15-$20 skins in all of their mobile game, or all of their multiplayer games. So they feel like
buy it.
You don't have to buy it, yeah, but the whole game is built around these monetization systems. And whether it's like we've said before, perception is often more important than reality in discussions with consumers. In this case, it doesn't really matter if factually games are cheaper than they were 10 years ago for consumers, because the perception is that people are paying more for less now. That's the perception. And that's what publishers are going up against. Like, factually, if you say $60 is $60 and you roll back the clocks, adjust for inflation, games are cheaper, but it also feels as though we're paying more for worse games consistently. And whether that's factually true, that's the perception that these publishers have to deal with. And games like Baldur's Gate 3, which is a remarkable once every decade type of game, that makes it even harder for these publishers. And that's why they freaked out initially when it came out, because they charged $60 for it, and it's an amazing game with hundreds of hours of content, and they just casually drop it, and no DLC, no microtransactions, nothing. It just is what it is. I can understand why publishers are freaked out and are stressing about it, but I mean, just try to raise the price of games again. Go to $90 each, and you will see quite the response. I'll tell you what. Try it, Capcom. We'll see how that goes for you.
I mean, Capcom is still at 60. That's the interesting part as well. Like they haven't even like gone to the new level.
So. Yeah, maybe they'll adjust. Maybe this next round of releases they'll do it. I don't know. We'll see. But it was an interesting take, and I think it reflects what every CEO is talking about behind closed doors, which is how do we charge more? I mean, it brings to mind the rumor that GTA 6 was going to cost $150 at launch, and Rockstar was just going to be like, yeah, it's $150, deal with it, you're going to buy it anyway, sucker. I don't think they're actually going to do that. I think they'll do 70, but I do think they'll charge like week to 2 week early access for the deluxe premium edition. That's going to be $150.
Yeah,
everybody will buy it. Like, let's be honest, everybody.
Yeah, they will have GTA Online probably at launch with all the shark cards or whatever. So they will be set for that. I mean, I think they want people buying that game because they want them getting like hooked on GTA Online, so they can get even more stuff out of them. I mean, we have actually already been seeing, like, there are with the deluxe editions and the gold editions and whatever they come up with, like, we are seeing that you can buy way more, or like you have the option to pay more for a game and get some extras. And I think that's actually a better way of doing it, that give people the option to pay more for your game, because I do want to like pay money. I do want to like support the games that I like and that bring quality to me. So if I have to pay more and get some cool extras, I'm totally fine with that. But make sure that at least the barrier to entry is still at that $70 mark. So at least a lot of people can enjoy the hobby still without having to get a lot of money. But I mean, right now also all these franchises, like they want people getting excited for the game. Like Horizon, for example, they have 2 games out, 2 main games, and they have thousands different types of merchandise. Like, I do think it's nice for these companies to have, especially in an worldwide now where you can like have, there's so much stuff asking for your attention. you want people in your game. That's actually so valuable because then they might become a fan and then they might spend more outside of the game, not even on microtransactions. So I think keeping that barrier low is actually, very smart. And then hopefully extract some money out of that, or have them talk about your game highly so other people buy it. Like, I don't think having the 150 makes a lot of sense.
I haven't seen their numbers behind closed doors. I mean, of course, they know better what their polling and surveys tell them. I think Arno brings up an interesting point. Keep in mind, he says in chat, it was Take-Two that first charged $70 for a game with 2K21, and I bet they're going to do the same thing with GTA 6. It'll be 75. I mean, I agree. If any studio, or rather publisher, were to do this, if any publisher were to come along and charge some amount more than 70 for their release, it would be Take-Two with GTA 6. And I think people will be shocked if they do that. I think people would be shocked at how well it still sells. The sheer volume of people that I think would be willing to spend $150 for GTA 6 on day one, I think it would be overwhelming. And then,
Or
like
a
I
day
said,
minus 12.
day minus 12. Yeah, it's the actual launch date. Everybody else, all the peasants that aren't going to pay that amount will have to wait, like, it's just I would not be surprised if they do something like that early access, or if they try to establish the ultra premium new standard of pricing where it's like, yeah, quadruple A games $90, and then early access is like 150. And maybe in the long term, maybe that's better for the business side of the industry. $90 for quadruple A games like God of War, Elden Ring, GTA 6, those games that are probably going to be 9 or 10s. And then everything else like AAA lands at that 60, 70 mark. Indie games are like 40 and below. Maybe that's healthier for the industry. I don't think gamers would respond well to it, but I do think it would be, I think people would be
I don't think
surprised
it's
at how many
healthier.
people would buy it.
I mean, because God of War also has to sell units, and maybe people will be stopped by, okay, I have to buy the PS5 and get the $90 game. That might actually like stop them from even wanting to get invested in the system because, okay, wow, I have to pay way more. And I think for Ubisoft, it's nice to have people playing Mirage because they might. I'm not sure if you saw the menu that got leaked. Live up your experience, or like they use a weird wording because they will of course have item packs in the game. Like they want people playing that game, so hopefully they will spend more on it because selling an item pack for $20 is like $90 profit or probably more. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the industry can go one of two ways, and it's that they double down on the $70 price point and then they fill in the gap and get extra revenues by way of microtransactions like you're mentioning, or I guess there's three options, or they shift and they do like a multi-tiered system where it's ultra premium games are more expensive than the games that are premium, and then the mid-tier indie games are at a lower price point than that.
Yeah, but what does that tell you? That GTA 6, or like maybe that's not the best example, but like this game, that is ultra premium. This other game, still really good, but it's not ultra premium. So that kind of tells you, okay, why would I invest in this lesser game? They even think it's lesser because they're
I think
asking
by
less
that
money.
point, like you could say, well, with Mirage, so Ubisoft is admitting Mirage is a bad game because they're pricing it less. I don't think so. It's just a lower budget. It's a lower, smaller in scope game, and I think consumers understand that too. I just think it would introduce more variability in pricing, and maybe that fixes or at least addresses, maybe doesn't fix, but it at least would be a way of addressing the problem right now, which is that 10 out of 10 games like a Red Dead 2 cost the same as like Immortals of Avium, which is okay. And it creates this weird influx of people not wanting to spend money on anything other than big AAA games. Which are in that quadruple A space. But I mean, again, I don't think anybody could pull it off except GTA 6 coming along and being like, yeah,
Elder
this game.
Scrolls.
I don't even think Elder Scrolls could do it.
No?
No, GTA 6 is on such a different planet. It's just nothing even approaches it.
I think Elder Scrolls is good. Not getting near that, but it's yeah.
It's big.
Maybe.
It's certainly big.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anywhere freaking close to
Maybe they
GTA
should
6.
call it Skyrim too. Maybe it will sell more that way.
If they do that, man, that would be so funny.
Maybe I would not be surprised if people like if you like go on the street and ask like random people, do you know what Skyrim is versus do you know what Elder Scrolls is?
Yeah.
Maybe more people know Skyrim.
Probably more people know Skyrim, I would bet. And I think vastly more people would know what GTA is, what Grand Theft Auto is.
Yeah, of course.
So we'll see.
Okay.
Either way, GTA 6 is going to be insane.
He took my thing.